Rahiyang Mandiminyak was born in the early 7th century CE as the eldest son of Prabu Wretikandayun, the revered founder of the kingdom of Galuh. His birth marked a continuation of the Galuh royal bloodline, envisioned as the spiritual and political heart of a newly emerging kingdom in the western part of Java. The name Rahiyang Mandiminyak is steeped in symbolic meaning. Rahiyang is an honorific title, typically reserved for kings who achieved semi-divine or ancestral status after death. Mandiminyak translates as bathed in oil or anointed, symbolizing purification, sacred initiation, and divine right to rule. It is widely interpreted as a sign that Mandiminyak was considered a king by both worldly inheritance and spiritual calling, an embodiment of both royal blood and divine favor. Raised in the palace of Galuh, Mandiminyak was educated in a manner befitting a prince of his time. His tutors included Brahmin priests, Sundanese sages, and seasoned military commanders. He mastered the Karu Ratu, royal wisdom, a philosophical and practical understanding of leadership, cosmic order, diplomacy, and war. Even as a child, Mandiminyak was noted for his calm demeanor and spiritual intuition. Court observers believed he had the rare ability to perceive hidden truths and interpret natural signs. He was said to experience dreams that foretold events, and to exhibit an inner glow, especially during meditative states. Such qualities gave rise to stories that he was a Raja Titisan, a king born of divine essence, destined to lead with righteousness and harmony. Despite his noble lineage and spiritual reputation, Mandiminyak's rise was not without political hurdles. The kingdom of Galuh, while powerful, was still consolidating power after separating from Tarumanagara. There were aristocrats who doubted the strength of dynastic succession and rival claims from within the extended family. Mandiminyak would eventually prove himself not merely as the son of a great king, but as a sovereign capable of guiding Galuh into a new era. Rahiyang Mandiminyak ascended the throne in 702 CE, following the abdication or passing of his father, Prabu Wretikandayun. His coronation was a significant moment in Galuh's history, symbolizing both continuity and a new chapter. The event was marked by a grand royal ceremony involving sacred chants, offerings to ancestral spirits, and anointment with fragrant oils, true to the meaning of his name. One of his first acts as king was to reinforce the spiritual and political unity of the realm. He convened a Sabha Ratu, a royal council consisting of elders, priests, and regional leaders. Through these meetings, he strengthened alliances and reaffirmed the sacred bond between the king, his people, and the land. He emphasized the Sundanese concept of Sili Hasi, Sili Asa, Sili Asu, mutual love, learning, and care among the people. Mandiminyak focused on stabilizing Galuh's borders and enhancing its prestige among neighboring kingdoms. He maintained peaceful relations with the Sunda kingdom, whose legacy still lingered in West Java, and with smaller polities in Central Java. According to oral traditions, he sent diplomatic envoys carrying gifts of woven cloth, scented oils, and sacred herbs, emissaries that projected both Galuh's wealth and its cultural sophistication. Infrastructure was also a priority during his reign. Mandiminyak supported the construction of irrigation channels, trade roads, and shrines dedicated to ancestral and nature spirits. These public works not only improved agriculture and trade, but also symbolized the king's divine stewardship over the land. Temples and sacred sites were built near rivers and forests, reinforcing the belief that Galuh was a spiritually guided realm in harmony with nature. Internally, he promoted legal reform and social stability. Inspired by his father's example, Mandiminyak issued Pitudu Ratu, royal decrees emphasizing justice, community harmony, and protection of the weak. These were inscribed on palm leaf manuscripts and chanted during communal gatherings, ensuring that even villagers in remote areas understood the will of the king. Under his rule, Galuh flourished not only as a kingdom of power, but of moral clarity and spiritual guidance. Rahiyang Mandiminyak's reign was deeply intertwined with the spiritual world. He was known not just as a king, but as a spiritual practitioner, a king sage who communed with the invisible forces of nature and the ancestors. Temples dedicated to Sanghyang Kursa, the Almighty, and ancestral spirits became pilgrimage sites, where he personally led rituals during eclipses, seasonal changes, and harvest festivals. One of the most powerful legends surrounding Mandiminyak was his connection to Tsikahurapan, the sacred spring believed to bestow vitality and spiritual insight. It was said he meditated near its waters for 40 days, during which he received divine visions of Galuh's future. As a result, he was believed to possess Ilmutaya, a form of enlightened spiritual knowledge that allowed him to lead with wisdom beyond his years. His spiritual powers were often demonstrated through acts of healing and weather control. Chronicles and oral stories speak of him calming storms through prayer, restoring health to the sick with herbal concoctions, and sensing unrest among his people even from afar. While some historians treat these accounts as metaphorical, they reflect the belief that his kingship was rooted in divine connection, not merely royal blood. Mandiminyak also preserved sacred heirlooms, pusaka, handed down from Wretikandayun and older Tarumanagara rulers. These included the Kujang Pamungkas, a ceremonial blade used only during spiritual rites, the Layang Jaya Sampurna, a scroll inscribed with royal laws, and a crown said to glow under moonlight. Each pusaka was more than a symbol. It was considered to house the protective spirit of the kingdom. As a spiritual leader, Mandiminyak attracted sages and mystics from across the archipelago. The royal court of Galuh became a center for religious dialogue, merging traditions from Hinduism, Sunda Wiwitan, and indigenous animism. This created a uniquely Galuh spiritual culture, one that would influence later Sundanese rulers for generations. Despite his popularity and power, Rahiyang Mandiminyak did not cling to the throne. True to his philosophical teachings, he believed that leadership was a duty, not a possession. As he entered his later years, he began preparing for abdication, something relatively rare in monarchic traditions, but consistent with Galuh's spiritual values. Around 709 CE, Mandiminyak passed the crown to Prabu Wretikandayun, his own son-in-law and trusted successor. The transition was peaceful, ceremonial, and spiritually sanctified. He presided over the coronation himself, placing the crown and symbolic heirlooms upon his successor's head and delivering a sacred oath of kingship. This event became a model of ideal succession, a king stepping down voluntarily to ensure continuity and harmony. Even after stepping down, Mandiminyak retained a semi-sacred role as a spiritual elder. He lived in seclusion near a mountain hermitage, where he continued to meditate, advise the royal court, and serve as a spiritual anchor for the kingdom. Courtiers and villagers alike would make pilgrimages to seek his blessings, often leaving offerings of incense, fruits, and handwritten prayers. His abdication marked not an end but a transformation. From ruler to sage, Mandiminyak exemplified the Sundanese ideal of Niskala leadership, invisible yet present, guiding not through authority but wisdom. His legacy would remain etched not only in the laws and monuments of Galuh, but in the hearts of its people. This practice of spiritual abdication would influence later Sundanese kings, including those in the unified Sunda Galuh kingdom, some of whom would adopt the title Rahiyang after death following his example. Rahiyang Mandiminyak is believed to have passed away peacefully sometime in the mid-8th century, though exact dates remain uncertain due to the scarcity of records from the era. His death was not mourned as a tragedy, but celebrated as a transition into the realm of the ancestors, a return to the eternal source. According to legend, his body did not decompose in the usual manner but vanished into light, leaving behind only a faint scent of sandalwood and oil, echoing the meaning of his name. This gave rise to the belief that he had achieved moksha, spiritual liberation, and ascended as a guardian spirit of the land. A pasarian, sacred tomb or meditation site, was erected at the location of his final retreat, believed to be near the upper Sitandui River. This site became a center of pilgrimage for centuries, where kings and commoners alike sought his spiritual guidance through prayer, dreams, and rituals. He was posthumously titled Rahiyang Sakti Mandiminyak, enshrined in oral histories and ritual texts as one of the Batara Karuhun Galuh, the divine ancestors of Galuh. Shrines bearing his name can still be found in parts of Chiamas and Kawali, and he is sometimes invoked in traditional pupujan, devotional chants, during Sundanese ceremonies. His deification ensured that Mandiminyak's legacy endured not only through political structures, but in the spiritual imagination of his people. His name, a symbol of enlightened rulership and sacred kingship. The legacy of Rahiyang Mandiminyak continues to echo through modern West Java, particularly in regions that once formed the heartland of Galuh. His spiritual influence is felt in place names, cultural rituals, and the enduring reverence for ancestral wisdom. Villages near Chiamas, Panawangan, and Kawali still tell stories of his reign, and local historians often cite him as a model of ethical leadership. Modern scholars and cultural institutions in Java have begun to recover and reinterpret his legacy, linking him to environmental stewardship, nonviolent governance, and spiritual resilience. His teachings have found renewed relevance in discussions on indigenous identity and Sundanese cosmology. Geographically, his kingdom has left a lasting imprint on the land, Sacred sites such as Situ Lengkong Panjalu, Kawasan Astana Gede, and ancient roadways still reflect the layout and spiritual geometry of his era. Oral traditions claim that ley lines of power, Garis Sakti, still connect these places to Mandiminyak's resting spirit. Culturally, his ideals influence Sundanese art, theater, and storytelling. Characters inspired by Mandiminyak often appear in Wayang Golek and Pantun Sunda, portrayed as wise, calm, and spiritually attuned. His life represents the fusion of royal duty and sacred purpose, a harmony that defines the unique legacy of the kingdom of Galuh. In an age where power is often pursued for its own sake, Rahiyang Mandiminyak's story stands as a timeless reminder. True kingship is service to the world, anchored in wisdom and guided by the unseen.